pause button. I thought I hit my pause button and I didn't. Oh, darn. Now I got to edit. Okay.
Well, stop and start over and just get rid of the first part.
I see quizás maybe, but lately with the latest update, I get funny little messages, so I dare not. No, it's easier for me to go in and edit. I can edit it in YouTube later. Okay. Y feliz miércoles, happy Wednesday. Se supone, it's supposed to, se supone que va a llover, pero no lo creo. No lo creo. No lo creo.
En sueño, in your dreams.
Eso es, sí, exactamente. De acuerdo. And we'll have to say, feliz aniversario. Janet will not be here because she's busy celebrating 50th wedding anniversary. Felicitaciones, Janet. 50 años de matrimonio. De éxito. Excelente. Okay. So hopefully she's having a lot of fun celebrating, as she should. Okay. Vamos a practicar con muchísimas cosas. We're going to practice with a lot of different things. I found some interesting things through the week. We are going to practice a little bit with our plant type vocabulary. Y gracias a Karen. Thank you, Karen, because she had found an even better website than I had found. So I will be sending that to you guys as homework. We will not use it for a smaller group work today, but I'll show you what it looks like. But it is actually quite an excellent site. I went in search of something, I wanted a nice comprehensive list and a nice comprehensive presentation on YouTube. And it was either people with really awful Spanish accents, Este es una semilla. And I'm like, oh my God, no. And God bless them, because some of those were quite accurate, but the accents were just, I couldn't take it. So it was either that, or there were some kind of funky, odd videos that I deemed not as helpful. So I cobbled together a list, but Karen did find an excellent list in the state of California, del estado de California, no?
It's a Master Gardener thing for one of the counties, and they had put it together for elementary school children because they were starting to put gardens at schools. And so it has, a fairly simple vocabulary, but it's extensive. There's a lot of it, so.
Es excelente, but I'm going to send you the link to it, pero para que sepan, just so you see, there's a reason I did not send it to you late, because aunque es una guía excelente, although it is excellent and we will use it next week, part of the issue is, wow, 30 páginas. Do not just hit mindlessly print unless you get a very full tray on that printer. And you print double-sided. 30 páginas, 30 pages. So it is excellent. It is probably the best resource. So felicitaciones, congratulations. Kudos to you that you actually found that. It is good. I will send you the link, but I will urge you, please don't print unless you really don't mind printing lots and lots of sheets of paper.
When you get a chance to look at it, you'll see there's 15 pages that go English to Spanish, and then there's 15 pages that go Spanish to English.
Oh, so you could cut it. Well,
right. But it's nice because then it's alphabetized in the first language. So it can be helpful.
So you'll probably find some very, very helpful things. Some of them are more measurement things, like, how you talk about a foot of this, or, so some of it maybe you do want to know that. Depends, right? You should always take the vocabulary that is useful to you. If you want to talk to somebody about how many feet in your backyard need to be worked on, then knowing how to say feet, which is the same as the anatomy part, is useful. Es útil. Pero depende. It depends, right? So I will send along the link to that so you can use it here and there. So we are going to spend some time on some plant and growing vocabulary and have you practice using a few things. But I do want to start again with this theme that we started last week, this whole thing of common errors, which is sort of interesting. Ooh, I want to see if you can pick these out. And I purposely don't want to send you the link on this because the audio quality is kind of half and half. The first couple minutes of the audio are just fine, and the second half sound like they're talking into a tin can. So we're going to just do some stop and start with this video so you can see the terms. So I want to pull things up, and they're kind of talking about errores comunes, common errors, and see if you recognize how to fix them. Uy, a ver. So we're going to shorten this video quite a lot, and we're just al grano. We're going to go straight to the point and skip all the other preliminary stuff.
Por supuesto, hay palabras que los nativos no decimos.
There are words that natives we don't say.
Y parece que sí, pero en realidad son errores comunes de los estudiantes de
They're
español.
common
En
errors of
esta lista te vamos a decir
learners.
6 frases que los nativos no decimos.
So we'll give you the
Y bueno,
errors. See
vamos
if
a
you can fix
comenzar
them.
con la primera, que es busco por. I'm
Busco por.
Oh,
Bus-
yeah.
Por. No se dice busco por. No, 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 no. Esto es un error muy grave. This is something that will get you probably some funny looks. Will they know what you're saying? Yes. But will it sound really weird to them? Sí. ¿Cómo se dice look for?
Busco?
Busco.
Busco. Boom.
Ujú.
Y nada más. Busco. Se puede decir busco. Busco a mi amigo. Then you need your a personal. Busco a mi amigo, or we don't need the a personal if you're looking for a thing. Busco un libro con vocabulario, por ejemplo, ¿sí? Ok. O en progresivo, a veces estoy buscando. I am looking for, meaning you walked in the store and you're doing it right now, yeah? Because that's why we use the estoy buscando, meaning I'm doing it right now. And, you're asking for help if you're using estoy buscando, because you're saying, hey, I'm doing this right now and I'm not finding it. Okay? Bien? Vale. Por is not used with buscar. No se usa. Okay. Here's one that another one. Otro. Here's another one that actually a lot of people are guilty of. I actually do hear people making this mistake from time to time.
Otra frase que no decimos los nativos es no bueno.
No bueno. No. Oh, y quizás ellos no se dan cuenta del por qué. I think maybe they may not realize the why of this. Because in English, it's very common to say, oh, that's no good. That's no good. Wow. The guys didn't pick up the garbage for my neighbors. That's no good. You burnt this meat. That's no good. We say no good all the time. ¿Qué hacemos para no cometer, para corregir este error? What do we do to fix that?
Would you say no es bueno?
No es bueno, no está
mal.
bueno.
Es mal.
Sí, but you need some kind of a verb. Yeah, just saying no good can't happen. Let me fast forward.
Es no buena.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Son frases que suenan raras para un nativo. Nosotros anteponemos la negación.
We put the negation up front, meaning up in front of the verb. And that no bueno, you don't even have a verb, so you're right. You need a verb.
No es bueno. No es buena. Entonces, por ejemplo, esta comida no me gusta. No es buena. Uf, esto que pasó no es bueno.
Oh, you know, this thing that happened, that's not good.
La siguiente es creo que. Esto no es un error, pero a veces se usa de una forma incorrecta.
So actually the creo que is not a real mistake. We do use creo que. ¿Qué indica? ¿Qué quiere decir en inglés creo que? Creo que.
I believe that, I think
I
that.
believe that. I think that. Y usamos creo que cuando decimos I think that. Literalmente, sí, es I believe that, pero se dice cuando decimos en inglés, I think that. So if you believe something, you think it's right. Okay, so creo que. And they're telling you this is not an error. It's a kind of a question of where you place it. Creo que can always lead off a sentence. Okay, por ejemplo, creo que no llueva. I think it's not gonna rain. Creo que no llueva. Creo que no llueva. Oh, creo que no llueve, perdón. Because no creo uses the subjunctive. Creo que no llueve, because that's the truth. Creo que hay suficiente comida aquí en la mesa. I think there's enough food here on the table. Creo que. But sometimes in English, we'll say, I think there's enough food, or you might say, there's enough food, I think. And if you put the creo que at the end, you have to ditch the que. Okay. So if you use the I think at the end, which some people do, I hear it way more up front personally, you know, but va a llover, creo. Va a llover, creo. Okay, it's going to rain, I think. If you use the creo at the end, just creo without the que. But
Okay.
I personally, my habit, mi hábito personal es usar creo que enfrente. I use my creo que up front. That is just what I am more comfortable using. Okay. A ver, ¿sí? Okay. A ver, voy a buscar la próxima, el próximo error. So if you say, yeah, this is wrong, I think, and you put the I think at the end, just creo. Bien. That error, I have to say, oh, okay. Esto es fácil. This one's an easy one. Well, it's an easy one, but it's kind of, this one is a fault of translating literally.
Y los nativos no es sujeto. Por
Sujeto.
ejemplo, este sujeto no me gusta.
Este sujeto no me gusta. And this is where their audio starts to go really quiet and kind of bad. Este sujeto no me gusta. Hablemos de algo más. This subject I don't like, but that's not the way people would ever say that. Let's talk about, something else. Okay. When you use sujeto looks like and sounds like the English word subject. Pero en español, sujeto es un término gramatical. It is a grammatical term. So nobody will use it. People will use sujeto to say, oh, the subject of the sentence as grammatical structure, you know. José va a la escuela. Ah, el sujeto de la frase es José. The subject of the sentence is José. Whoever it is who is doing the action, that's the subject of the sentence. That is what sujeto means in Spanish. But if you want to say, oh, this subject is very, this subject is really difficult for people to talk about. This subject causes problems. We cannot use the word sujeto to indicate subject as in a topic. If you mean to use the word subject as in a topic, an idea, then we need a totally different word. Actually, I think they give two. The first one that would come to mind for me would be el tema. El tema. Tema es más como theme. El tema, ¿sí? Este tema es difícil para mucha gente. This subject, this theme, this topic, this thing that we're going to talk about is difficult for a lot of people. So, este tema, all right? If you mean subject as in a topic you will be talking about, the word tema is, la palabra tema es mejor. The word tema is better. I'm going to look, I think they had a second one. Yeah, so sujeto, even though it looks like a direct cognate, is really only used like to talk about grammatically the subject of a sentence. Uy, hay otro momentito. Oh, no.
Signatura.
Oh, es otro. That's a different way of saying subject, but that means the kind of subject that you study in school. So asignatura, sí, es subject, pero como por ejemplo, las matemáticas son una asignatura muy difícil. La física, physics, la química, chemistry, es una asignatura en el colegio, en el instituto. So if you mean subject as in a class that you study, then it's asignatura. So yeah, there are actually many different words they use for subject, but which word you choose depends on the context of the sentence. If by subject you mean a topic that people are talking about or reading about, or a theme, yeah, as in the vein of a theme, it is tema, okay? Vale, okay. Y el próximo, and here's where, because the video gets kind of bad, we will just show you the written part of it. Uy, a ver. Okay. Okay. Otra cosita aquí. Bien.
Un error muy común es usar por qué en lugar de solo por al dar una razón o una...
Oh, using porque in place of por upon giving an explanation. And he'll give an example here, and I think he prints it out. And actually you can see in red here, aquí en rojo tenemos tres formas. Hay tres formas distintas para decir because. But the clue is sometimes it's because, sometimes it's because of. And whenever you've got because of, you can't translate it as two words. You can't use porque de. I used to see kids lots of times where he's saying, oh, he did this because of his mom. Porque de su mamá. And it's like, day, no. No se dice. You don't use that. You'll use either porque or para or por. And I think he's got an example.
Por.
I think
No vamos a explicar mucho estos temas porque podemos hacer un video completo explicando. Nos dicen, ¿por qué aprendes español?
Why are you learning Spanish?
Bueno, pues porque mi familia.
Why? Familia. Uh-oh, it did a blip on us. Okay. If you want to say, sí quieren decir, because of my family, it will not be porque, it'll be just por. Aprendo español por mi familia. I'm learning Spanish on account of my son's, the family of my son's girlfriend. Aprendo español por la familia de la novia de mi hijo. Okay. If you just say because of and you name people, it's just por. Because of is usually por. Okay. Whenever we use porque, because, we need a sentence, a clause, something that actually has a verb. So I cannot use porque with porque la familia. I've got to have porque verb, something doing la familia. Okay. When I use porque, the longer word instead of por, I need to have a whole clause, meaning a mini sentence within a sentence. And I think they're going to give us an example here. Aquí, momentito. You'll have to read it more than listen to it because it's
¿Cuándo deberían decir por mi familia?
por mi familia is
Porque
on account
es
of my family.
únicamente cuando existe
Porque is
un
only
verbo
used when there
y
is a
por
verb
cuando hay
connected
un
with it.
sustantivo. ¿Por qué aprendes español? Por mi
On
familia.
account of my family, por mi
Por
familia.
último, queremos hablar sobre el verbo gustar. El verbo
Okay,
gustar
and they only, okay, if you really wanted to use porque, you could connect a sentence to that and say, aprendo español porque la familia de la novia de mi hijo habla español también. Habla también el español because they speak Spanish too. Then you can use porque. Okay, so por, the shorter one, can be used with a noun, a person, a thing. Okay, but if you're going to use porque to say because of, on account of, then you need a whole sentence, something that's got a subject and a verb. And then I can say sujeto because that's subject and verb. Okay. And I think this is going to be the last one they give. And this one I'm going to see if you guys remember because we've kind of worked on this fairly recently.
A veces el verbo gustar es un problema
We're going
para
to talk about
los
gustar.
estudiantes de español. Claro. Por ejemplo, podemos escuchar: yo gusta las matemáticas.
Wow, why does that not work? Yo gusta las matemáticas. That really does not work.
I have to say, yo me gusta.
Can you say
Or-
yo me gusta?
No, you have to say, a mí me gusta.
Eso es. Me gusta is great. Yo gusta is very confusing to a native speaker. Yo gusta, no, nunca, never, never. Me gusta, just by itself, is fine. Me gusta, sí. Perfecto. Or, to be a little more emphatic, a mí me gusta. A mí me gusta, también, excelente. Ningún problema, no problem. Okay. A mí me gusta, a ti te gusta, or te gusta by itself, me gusta by itself, nos gusta by itself. Okay. But if you're going to put in a subject like a yo or a nosotros, it's got to be an a nosotros nos gusta. A mí, not a yo. A mí me gusta. A ti te gusta. So those are the common things that they hear people saying a lot. So kind of check yourself when you use those in future. Yeah, see? Okay. A ver.
Pero
pregunta.
Sí, dime.
It said that there are 3 ways to say because, porque, por, and
Yeah.
para, which
Para.
para and por always confuse me anyway. So
Yeah. Well, maybe do a little more with por and para next session. Yeah. See, fall, come fall. Por and para is something that always trips people up. Spanish speakers know that por and para are going to mess with you. They absolutely know that. They expect, they're very tolerant of por and para mistakes, but they're, porque, para, por, I think is a little more common to say because of. Para, para can be used for because, but well, we'll tackle that later. Para, you will hear more connected with verbs. Para estudiar, to study, right? You uso este cuaderno para estudiar vocabulario. I use this notebook to study vocabulary, para estudiar. But really por or porque, usually for because, or por usually when you want to say because of. I'm going to give you another a couple examples of when we use por to say because of. And por, notice, will be just matched up with a thing or a person. Por ejemplo, cocino, I could say cocino para mi familia. I cook for my family, meaning they're going to receive it. But you could say, cocino por el amor. I cook because of love. See? Cocino tanto por amor de mi familia. I cook a lot on account of love for my family. Se puede decir. O, por ejemplo, el papá trabaja día y noche, todo el tiempo, toda la semana. Ese padre es tan buen padre. He's such a good dad. Siempre trabaja por su familia. He's always working on account of his family. Okay, on behalf of, because of them. So por always carries that idea of on account of this thing, somebody does something. Okay. But yeah, but the way that I used to hear teenage kids try to translate because of would be to say things like por de or porque de, because in English they were thinking because of, and they wanted to use the of part. No, nada de eso, nothing about that. There won't be any of stuff. Because of is generally just going to be por. Okay. Bueno, a ver. Entonces, a ver. Tengo que buscar mi. Ok, bien. Bueno, ok. Pasamos o cambiamos de tema. Let's change the subject. Cambiamos de tema. Let's change the subject. We're going to go back to the videos that you have for this week. We had a little thing about, Argentina, La Pampa, life in the plains of Argentina, and that whole thing about the Tuba de Colima, that drink. Hay algunas preguntas y no soy experta de la bebida La Tuba, ¿ok? Entonces, no soy ninguna experta de Tuba, pero ¿tienen ustedes alguna pregunta? Do you have any kind of question about that little video about them climbing the trees and collecting all that sap and such? No? Nada? Okay, because it was kind of fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Slow it down.
And you had a little reading about the tuba, right?
Sí.
Exacto.
Yeah. I'm going to point out just a couple of little things about that reading because it was kind of interesting to see if you caught the little nuances. Conoce la tuba. Get familiar with tuba. Get familiar with it. Y cacahuates. There are those peanuts that we talked about last week. Están flotando. ¿Sí? Por encima de la bebida. Get familiar with tuba, a refreshing drink from Colima. And so they talk about, I'm just going to do some freeform quick translation here. The warm climate, warm and humid climate of the Pacific is not just any old thing. Cualquier is a very specific, well, it's a very specific word that means any old. It's not just any old thing. Se puede andar, one can walk through the streets with fresh clothing, and you'll still have to hydrate yourself to enjoy the walk. See, hidratarse, habrá que is a future of hay que, and you will have to, it puts it into the future, and you will have to hydrate yourself to enjoy the walk. Por fortuna, luckily, right? Por suerte, por fortuna, existe una bebida de la gastronomía de Colima que refresca a cualquier acalorado. There exists this gastronomic wonderful drink from Colima that refreshes any heated up person, acalorado, somebody who is just suffering from the heat. See, la tuba. Se trata de, wow, se trata de.
It's about.
It's about, fantástico. That is a chunk of words that you should always remember when they're saying, you know, it's about this. Se trata de la miel. And you'll notice they've used all kinds of different words to kind of talk about syrup or sap, and here they call it miel, honey. The honey extracted from the heart of the palm. And that, you know, even though it isn't honey like we think of with bees making honey, see, they call it la miel extraída, the honey extracted. So they mean that sap. It's really, I think, technically kind of a sap. Karen would probably know this better than any of us, our plant expert, but así es, so it is. As a product of a mestizo culture. So this is a product from Mexico. It is something that evolved from this, la cultura de la gente de España, la gente indígena, you know, the indigenous and the Spanish cultures. It's native to this area. And it has lots of history, lots of background, right? Tuba conquers any heated soul. Alma is a soul. Any overheated soul, it will conquer that, okay? And more so when, they think it's more refreshing with the cacahuates. Those peanuts keep coming back. I got to find a place that's got tuba.
I know. I really want to try
now
it.
I am so curious, and you know, maybe I'm going to have to explore some little neighborhood. Like all through the coast, the Pacific coast, la influencia filipina. Wow, I did not expect to find out that really the Philippine influence was such a big deal with this, but that is it. The Philippine influence in kitchen and in culinary arts, right, is really evident thanks to La Nao de China. Con ella llegaron en, I think that's the name of the ship. Is that it? Anyway.
Oh, is that what it is?
Oh, is that, yeah, I didn't know. Did that mean
Nao
that-
de China, momentito, Nao de China. No sé. Pues sí. Okay, I'm going to have to do a little more background on that one.
Yeah, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do a little more background. Un momentito. I'm going to have to find that and do a little more background on that. But in any event, they kept mentioning in a couple of the articles these specific ships that rolled in.
Oh, that's a neat one.
And I guess the ship was a storied ship. It was a ship that would always bring in both labor to work and products from Asia, etc. So in any event, that is what started this whole craze thing for Tuba, because it was a thing that was out in the Pacific, but at the other end of the Pacific. Una herencia filipina, something inherited from the Philippine tradition. Y recuerdo de vino de cocos, wine of cocoa, a souvenir or remembrance of, this alcoholic beverage. Lanao de China. I'm going to have to look up more on that. But anyway, this whole thing, and it may just be the whole culture that came over from Las Filipinas, the Philippines. It influenced this cooking culture in Colima. En la época del virreinato, in the epoch, the era of the viceroyalty. Virreinato means the viceroyalty. So this is that whole colonial hierarchy of ruling Mexico before it gained its independence. This boat sailed from the Philippines towards Acapulco, making a stop in Manzanillo, where the first products and people got off. Bajaban means they got off or used to get off the ship. So now they China, yeah, I think that is the name of the boat. So this was a boat that regularly did this route. Así se empezó a cultivar la palma o cocotero, de donde los migrantes producían una bebida llamada vino de cocos. So vino de cocos was the first name of this beverage. Coconut wine, literally. So they're saying with this whole sentence, así se empezó, thus began, thus it was begun to cultivate this palm. And you'll hear palms referred to as la palma or cocotero or palmero or palmera. You'll hear it called all of those things, from which the migrants produced this drink. But originally they called it vino de cocos, coconut wine. Este fermentado tenía un parentesco con el aguamiel pulquero, ya conocido por los indígenas. Oh, wow. So this fermented drink had a parentage or a background or like a shared source with, how many of you know what pulque is?
It's like a fermented mezcal, like an agave product before distillation was brought in by the Spanish.
Exacto. Muy fuerte. You know, pulque is, I believe, from a cacti.
I think it's from agave.
Oh, it is. Okay. Okay. Pulque is a very strong. So whereas this video told us that the alcoholic content in La Tuba is very, very low, pulque, it's pretty high alcohol content. So anyway, but they're all kind of things that were, were common in the background of alcoholic drinks kind of developing in Mexico. And había que raspar el corazón. So el corazón, the heart, and you kind of saw the videos where they're climbing those trees. They're not at all boring into the trunk. as the gal had told us in the video last week. They really are harvesting that heart of the palm where I believe the fruit will develop one day if you let it keep going and growing. So, you know, they're kind of actually milking that bud, that very large bud, because it's a very large plant. So that is what they dig into. And of course, when it first comes out and they empty it straight out of the palmero, it does look kind of like that. It is not super clear, but it doesn't have that pink color because they've added the fruit when you see the pink colors. So vino de cocos did have a high alcohol content. Y se prohibió. It was prohibited. It was forbidden. And boom, people kind of forgot how to produce it. But this other thing survived from it, which was tuba. And they tell you that, oh, manzanas, there's something that they add. Fresas, there's something they add. But the tuba is a much lower alcohol content. So, sí, eso es. They tell you a little bit more. We won't translate the whole thing, but you can see all these cuts are not for taking out sap. They're just for the guy to climb the tree.
Marilyn,
Sí,
pregunta.
sí.
What is the word antesala before the living room? The pero sobrevivió.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we didn't get
Antesala. I have to look that one up. Oh, entrance hall or precursor. They're talking about precursor. Something that came before.
came before. Okay.
Sobrevivió su antesala. It survived, meaning tuba survived its precursor, the drink that came before. So the drink that came first was the coco de vino, or vino de coco, perdón, vino de coco. Vino de coco fue la primera bebida
Sí.
de la palma. Y la tuba, la evolución, la tuba es representa la evolución de vino de coco. So the tuba is like a later development of on that same theme. Bien?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Bien. Okay. Y bueno, ¿a qué sabe? When you see a sabe used like this, they're talking about what does it taste like. This looks like the sabe from what? You know sabe as?
To know.
No.
To know, saber. And little did you know there are two sabers. There's a saber we use all the time, which means to know. We use that saber much more than we use this other saber. There is another saber, it's spelled the same way, it's pronounced the same way, but it means to taste a certain way. Okay. ¿A qué sabe la tuba? Means what does tuba taste like? And we don't use saber to say, like, I'm tasting this food to see if it's done. We use saber to say something tastes like, okay, por ejemplo, se dice que, it is said that, se dice que las patas de rana, frog's legs, ¿sí? Las patas de rana saben a pollo. They taste like chicken. Saben a pollo, con a, with an a, and it just needs to be there. Saben a pollo. They taste like chicken. That kind of taste. But we don't use that saber verb, that other form of saber, that other verb saber, to say, I am tasting this for food. That is pruebo. or
So
even tomo.
It's saber rather than sabor. Sabor would be taste, wouldn't it?
It is related to that idea of sabor, meaning a flavor. Yes, I think it is the verb form of that idea of sabor. And I'm pretty sure they probably came from a similar root back in Latin. Somewhere.
Mhm.
In all likelihood. Okay. Okay. Bien. I just want to point out maybe one little extra thing here before we move on to some more plant-based thing. But you can see, well, this is our plant leaking into our little plant theme. Una buena tuba nunca estará completamente fermentada. A good tuba will never be totally fermented. Okay. So it's never going to be a 52 proof rum. No. Quizás tenga notas ácidas, pero nada más. Perhaps it has some acidic notes. Yeah. So little notes as in flavor, like when people talk about, wine has, little flavor of oak, little flavor of fruit, something like that, nutty notes notas ácidas, acidic notes. So little hints of flavor are notas, right? Ácidas. Okay. Es muy buena para la digestión y para limpiar el intestino. Well, okay, we'll let that go at that.
Cleans you out.
Cleans you out. There you go. Así es. Okay. So, entonces, hope you enjoyed that little bit there. A ver, bueno. Okay. Al grano. Let's get down to it. I've got a little list of words, and I'm hoping to send you out in some smaller groups and maybe practice a little bit with some of these. Inventing some things some ways you may use this. So, así, momentito. Aquí, here we got, yeah. Did I send you this list or no? Eso no. No, I didn't. No, because I felt it was too long. So here's what I'm going to do. Vocabulario relacionado con los jardines. La jardinería, gardening, las plantas. Okay. I want you to take a look at some of these words, and I'll pronounce them for you. I may need to make this a little bit smaller because I want to take this in a chunk. Así. Bien. Okay. Así, like this. Pueden ver. Can you see this well enough, or is it too small? ¿Es demasiado pequeño o no? No. Okay. So you know how they sound. Okay. El cultivo, farming or cultivation, right? El cultivo. If we turn that into a verb, it becomes
Cultivar.
Cultivar. Cultivar is to grow, as when people grow something. Okay. If you want to say they grow something, we don't use crecer. Crecer is a word that means to grow, but that's like if you want to say the plant grows or the kid is growing, whatever that living entity is that is growing, then we use crecer. But if you want to say, I am growing herbs, right? Then I am not the thing growing. I'm cultivating that. So to say I am growing something, it's got to be cultivar. Okay, not crecer. Plantar also does work if you're just doing, planting. Okay. There are a lot of words you may hear related with actual dirt or land, or the actual ground one works in. El terreno, land. That's kind of a higher level word. La tierra will be what people will typically use to talk about soil, like potting soil. You can use just tierra. And tierra means literally earth, or like the whole planet, it could mean, or dirt or soil. Okay. Terreno is more like in that sense of a field. Also, el campo definitely means a field or like the countryside. En el campo, in the country, meaning in the countryside. El área, wow, that looks like the English. We just need a little accent mark. El área, el acre. I'm not sure you want to really practice that word, but there it is. Y hay una diferencia. There's a little bit of a difference between el jardín, garden, and el huerto, a vegetable garden. And I hear this uses both la huerta and el huerto. So I'm not sure if one is preferred or if that does a flippy floppy. Either way, it doesn't matter. But el jardín is a very generic word for garden. But el huerto, you're not talking really about flowers or things just to look pretty. You know, el huerto is utilitarian kind of garden term, something that you're growing to produce something that will be consumed, as opposed to just looking at pretty flowers. Okay. La arena, there's something that's a more specific type of soil. La arcilla, clay. Tenemos arcilla aquí. El barro, mud. Mud. Okay. There are, el mantillo, mulch. I think there is another. Pastaje, perhaps. We'll see. Anyway, mantillo, mulch. Piedras, rocks. A lot of us have rocks in a lot of our yard, especially if you are doing drought resistant kind of gardening, right? And if you want to refer to a fence, if you have a fence around your backyard, la cerca, that sounds like the word for nearby, right? Cerca, está cerca, it's near, but la cerca is a fence. La valla also can mean a fence. They're pretty interchangeable, I think. Okay. And then we've got some other new things here, and some of these are going to sound very cognate-like because they are, like la irrigación, el riego, both mean irrigation, but the verb we get from that is irrigar, to irrigate. And I know some folks are very good gardeners and they irrigate. I don't have an irrigating system. La manguera, a hose, and regar is the verb we use with that, to water. So if you're giving water either through a hose or through a can, it'll be regar, to water. I want to point out that regar also is, an E to IE stem changer. It is a stem changer. So I'm watering things, riego. Riego las plantas en mi patio. Bien, por ejemplo, sí. El aspersor is a sprinkler. Sequía, drought. And the description word related to that noun, sequía, is seco, dry. La sombra, shade. Excavar, to dig. La pala is a shovel. Palear is to shovel, but you can use excavar the same way. El hoyo would be a hole, you know, if you have to give somebody instructions. A lot of these are going to relate to instructions you might give somebody who's taking care of your yard. Cortar is to cut, but if you're just clipping like bushes, you could use cortar. You could, or if you want to say clip, as in you're only cutting a little off, you know, a tiny bit, or trim, podar. Podar is trim, meaning you're taking a little bit off. Cortar is, you know, a bigger action. But cortar is very very all-purpose. So, you know, cortar, podar, regulares, those are regular verbs. Las ramas are branches. Las herramientas are tools. El rastrillo, rake. Bucket might be called either cubeta or cubo. If you got a saw that somebody's got to use, la sierra. La sierra is a saw. La escalera, ladder. If you want to talk, show somebody where a faucet is, it might be called either la llave del jardín, because it's an on-off key, you know, an on-off valve, or el grifo for the faucet, you know, if somebody's connecting something to a faucet. So what I want to give you some time to do is to go out and create, pick any 5 with your group, and I'll send this list into your small groups. Pick any 5 of those and create 5 little sentences with the people in your group using those words, something you would say to a landscaper or describe to a landscaper. Bien? See? And I'm going to send that same screen in with you. Okay, bien? And then we'll come back and maybe share some ideas that you came up with. And you should make it definitely personal, something that you would use, but probably with a gardener, you'll use any of those sentences. A ver. Bum, 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 bum. Okay. Fantastico. And once you hit your join button, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to work that. Well, maybe more. Quizás más, 7, maybe 7. See?
Sí.
Create your own sentences, something you might use, a question you might ask, and I will send those words into your Zoom rooms. Creo que vamos a darle 7 minutos. I think we're going to give folks 7 minutes because to build 5 different sentences, you might need a little more time to think creatively, kind of assess what word would I use with somebody working in my yard, and then build some ideas of things you would actually say. Estamos a 5 minutos casi. Y después 2 minutos más. Ok. And here we go. 2 minutos más, 2 more minutes we'll give everybody, and then we'll come back, see what kind of questions people have. Oh, okay. Yeah. We're going to bring folks back, see what kind of questions they have, see what kind of sentences they have come up with. Y tienen 1 minuto para terminar todo y preguntarme cosas and ask me things. Ah, bien. Okay. A ver. All right. We got you back. Oh, I've just got you back. We have some people still plugged in. Okay. Okay. Bien. A ver. Muy bien, muy bien, muy bien. Okay. Sus ideas, your ideas, any questions you have or some examples, share some examples of how you use that vocabulary. Lisa, sí.
I have a question. We were talking about the word garden, jardín, and they were saying for vegetable garden, I should use huerto.
Huerto.
Okay, ¿por qué? Just
Es una manera de de distinguir que el tipo de planta
Mhm.
es algo para consumir. Huerto is just, okay, so we add vegetable garden. That's the difference. Nada
Okay.
más. Yeah.
So is huerto vegetable garden? Okay, just that one word. Okay.
That one word. And it
I have
says the
never
whole idea, anything consumed. Okay, so fruit too. Let's say you had a strawberry patch, which here
Right.
you wouldn't because it would die in about a
People
week.
do. People do. I don't know how.
Okay. So, okay. But
Okay.
yeah, you only need that one word. And that word
I've never-
huerto
yeah.
carries with it the idea it's consumables.
Okay.
It's things we're going to eat are going to come out of this.
Okay, good to know. I never have heard that word.
There you
So,
go.
Yeah.
Sí. Okay. Bien.
Gracias.
De nada, de nada. Es muy útil. That's very useful because really there are people who do just,
Mhm.
my dad was a huerto guy.
I love
he
to. Yeah.
liked his flowers, but boy, it was the veggie thing that was his pride and joy. Okay. ¿Tienen ustedes algunos ejemplos? You have some sentence examples you want to share? Some sentences you came up with? Patricia, Pat?
We lost our words, so I'm not sure. I want to ask you something, but I'll give you a part of the sentence. El sistema de, was it irrigation?
Sí, okay, vale. I'll put that
wanted to
on
say
again
it.
so you can see. Para que
Yeah, what was the
sí.
word? I didn't get it.
El
written
sistema
down.
es excelente. Es
Irrigation.
excelente decir el sistema de
Irrigation. Esta, and we wanted to say it's leaking. How do you say leaking?
okay.
Oh,
For you.
Sí.
that's an excellent one.
Bien. Pues,
Busco,
okay.
Busco de leaks.
Busca.
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 Sí.
Excelente. Sí. Now, maybe the fastest way to really convey that idea is to say that something doesn't work.
Oh, no,
Okay. So I
sure.
want to give you a real generic
Okay.
term first. Bien. No funciona, does not function. Boom. And the reason I want to give you that first is that if there are specific words that mean leak, and I'll share another one with you in just a moment. Actually, I think I might put it on the list here so it'll be easier for you to see. Sí. Para que ustedes puedan ver. ¿Dónde está irrigación? Está aquí. Bien. Okay. No funciona is a nice generic term because it'll say any type of thing you've got, isn't working right. Okay. But if you want to say that the fluid is leaking out, gotear.
Oh, gotear.
Gotear is to leak. Okay. Gotear means that, well, yeah. Okay.
Or sprinkle.
I'm not filling in the blank. The blank I want to fill in. Actually, here's one thing I wanted you guys to kind of see a connection between. That cultivo has a root. It's a noun, but it's rooted. It helps you to know that the verb form is cultivar. Okay. If you got irrigación or el riego, because that means watering as well, which is what irrigation is, you've got a related word that becomes the verb, irrigar. Okay. But this idea of gotear, to leak, is related to this idea gota. So here's the missing link. Gotear is the verb. Es el verbo to leak, but Gotta get my punctuation back. Okay. La gota is a drop. So that noun, la gota, is related to gotear, meaning it's drip, drip, dripping.
Uh-huh.
Aha. You might hear people use perder, maybe, because, you know, if you're losing water, that's kind of related. But gotear es muy específico to leak. Bien? And I'll
Good.
leave that up in the list because actually that's helpful. That's something happens to us all the time. Okay. Ejemplos. Pat, did you have a sentence with that?
Oh, that was what we were trying to say. El sistema de irrigación. Well, I'll say, let's see. We're just trying to say it's leaking. That's
Gotea.
all.
Yeah.
Gotea.
Está. Oh, here's how I would say that, because what you want to mean is it's happening right now. That's why it's a
Yeah.
problem, right?
It said
Está,
está
we'll put it into progressive. Está goteando.
goteando.
Está goteando.
Okay. That's what we were trying to say.
Pierdo mucha agua. I'm losing a lot of water. Pierdo mucha agua, ¿no? Pierdo mucha agua.
Money, losing money.
Pierdo mucho dinero porque está goteando. It's leaking. See? You know, there are always workarounds. So, you know, irrigation goes through tubes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're not nice, great big, well, maybe you do have great big heavy pipes. They tend to be tubes, don't they? Yes.
Little rubber.
El tubo de irrigación está goteando. Yeah, irrigation tube is leaking. El tubo de irrigación no funciona. Isn't working. So no funciona is real generic. Right? It'll mean any old thing ain't working. And that's a helpful thing to know. Okay, fantástico. Otras ideas. Any other sentences you built that? Susana, sí, dime.
Okay, this is kind of tortured though.
Está bien, it's okay.
Excavamos el césped a poner las piedras para la sequía.
Muy bien. There's only one little thing I'm going to tweak in there. It's not tortured at all. Excavamos la hierba, excavamos la tierra para poner piedras, in order to put in. Yeah, I would add the para poner, para y vamos a reemplazar. We're going to replace. Vamos a reemplazar las plantas o la hierba con las piedras. ¿Sí? Perfecto. Perfecto. Bien. Bueno, ¿qué más? What other ideas do you have here? Okay, Susana, sí, dime.
We said la tierra es muy seco. Necesita ser regado. Needs to be watered.
Necesitamos regar.
We need to water.
Regar.
Okay.
Sí.
Pat and I were trying, I was arguing that to be watered is different than to water.
It is, isn't it?
Well, the way you said it is way better.
But this is a good question, Susana. Es buena pregunta. Here's what I'm going to tell you. It's a good question. And let's back up to something a little bit easier. ¿Es mejor decir la tierra es seca o la tierra está seca?
Or how you feel or where you.
Está, because it's not always.
Right.
I forget about that.
Seca or seco, whichever form you need it in, is that a characteristic Uniform to soil being what it is?
No, it is
There
not.
it is.
No.
Here it is.
Well, here it is.
Here it is.
Our soil.
Todo
yeah.
es relativo. Todo es relativo. Everything is relative, right? So yeah, okay. Aquí sí, quizá parece que sí, it seems so. But la tierra está seca. La tierra está seca.
seca.
Sí. El
Okay.
suelo está seco. Right. You want to express that as
Okay.
está. Okay.
Gracias.
Now the other thing. Oh shoot! And now I got too far off.
We need to water.
Necesitamos.
It
Okay.
needs to be watered.
Okay. It needs to be watered. It is watered. Who's doing the watering?
Mm.
Do we know?
No, that's
No.
right.
We don't know.
Are you asking him to
Yes.
water?
That is okay. When and now English has a tendency, and it's heavy-handed, to use what we call passive voice. Passive voice
Mm.
means we may or may not even know who's doing it. This thing is being acted on. That's what we call passive voice. Why is it passive? I don't necessarily know who's doing it, right?
Mhm.
The soldiers are being killed. The soldiers aren't doing the killing. They're like, they're the ones getting taken out, right? The soldiers aren't doing the action, right?
Okay.
Okay. Active voice means we tell who's doing something and we conjugate the verb for it.
Mm.
English tends to love this passive voice thing, and we use it a lot, a lot. Oh, this car isn't being driven much.
Mhm.
No mention of who's driving, right? That paper is read by everybody in the Phoenix area. Is read. Paper ain't doing the reading.
Mhm.
Yeah, somebody is doing the reading. We may name an agent and say it's read by everyone in Phoenix, by everyone in Phoenix. But the emphasis with passive voice is just that this thing is being acted upon.
Okay.
And the emphasis is not who's doing it. But Spanish doesn't really like passive voice. It has it. It has it. There is a place for it that is appropriate and expected. But yeah, if you want to say we need to water this, necesitamos regar el suelo. Necesitamos regar el jardín.
Okay.
Best to use no passive voice. So if you're thinking is being watered, no, just tell who's doing the watering. Yeah.
Okay.
Or
Thank you.
if you truly do want to be passive and you want to just emphasize, oh, the garden is watered every day, and you don't want to talk about who's doing it, you can say, oh, el jardín se riega todos los días. Se riega. It is being watered every
okay.
day. You
Okay.
can do that. And that's considered an appropriate kind of a fake passive voice, but they don't like using passive voice very much. So
Okay,
keep it
thank you.
active. Keep it active. And just say, regan, they water, to keep it a they, very generic, or regamos, we water. And that's good. Okay, bueno, ¿qué más? What other examples do you have? ¿Qué otros ejemplos tienen? ¿Algo? ¿Nada? ¿No? Bien. Okay. Bueno, I want to point out one other thing. I'm going to give you the second half of this for your homework. This week, I'm just going to give you this list. So I'm going to give you this second half. I'll do the pronunciation for you quickly before we run out of time. But I want you to do the same thing as part of your homework. Pick 5 of these. Just pick 5. If you want to go real crazy, pick 7, 7. Okay. And create some sentences with them. And something you might say to a gardener or say to somebody else in your family who's helping you in the garden. Lo que sea, whatever, okay? Things that you're going to do in your own garden, all right? And create some sentences using some of these new words, like 5, no more than 7, okay? So we've got las semillas, seeds. Those are the actual seeds, las semillas. And I want you to draw some similarities and look at how there are some similar forms. When we turn that into a verb, an action, it becomes sembrar. Sembrar is to plant the seeds. So in other words, there's that old-fashioned idea of to sow seeds. That's very biblical, isn't it?
Mhm.
Sowing the seeds. Do we really say the farmers are sowing? Maybe we do. The farmers are sowing the seeds. Well, they sow their crops. Yeah, we do say that. But sembrar would be to sow or to plant seeds. Okay. So sembrar, un verbo. And now we've got crecer, and that's to grow, but it's not the same as cultivar. Cultivar is when people grow crops, but crecer is what the living thing does. So we only use crecer when we talk about a plant or an animal or a human being. Okay, crecer is that living entity, be it plant or animal, doing the growing. Okay, crecer. La planta, muy obvio. El árbol, muy obvio. Sí, el arbusto. A shrub or a bush. Sí, por ejemplo, tengo aquí en mi jardín hay, un momentito, tengo que contar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hay 6 arbustos en mi jardín. Hay 6. Hay 3 enfrente de la casa, hay 3 detrás de la casa, en el patio, cerca del patio. Okay, bien. Different words are used for grass depending on what you mean. I'm going to repeat el pasto here because actually you hear this a lot in both of those senses. If you want to talk about grass, if you're one of those people who still has grass, here where I live, I can't even get to this many fingers on my hand of how many people have grass in the whole town. You just don't see it unless it's a golf course. El pasto, la hierba. El pasto can also mean the whole lawn. El césped, lawn. Okay, so those terms are used both for lawn and for grass. A little bit of careful with that hierba. Hierba sometimes a slang for, that kind of grass, which sometimes some people may use it in that. Hierba can also mean herb. So hierba has lots of meanings. Hierba is also herb. So it has very, like non-druggy kind of meanings too. But pasto, hierba. Sometimes you see this hierba spelled with a Y and it's pronounced the same way, but yeah, there we go. Okay. Oh, las malezas o las malas hierbas, weeds. Las malezas, and you see mal buried in that word malezas, bad plants. Malas hierbas, bad grasses. If you want to talk about pulling weeds.
Yes, pulling.
Yes. Do you want to do it? Of course you don't want to do it, but do we have to? Sadly, we do. Arrancar. Arrancar has a couple of meanings. Arrancar, oddly enough, is also used to start up a car, like crank it up, turn the ignition on. Arrancar, start up the car. But arrancar is to pull stuff out. Yeah, so pulling weeds is arrancar. Probably somebody might also use sacar for that idea. Sacar is to take something out. So, they might use that too. But arrancar is really pull that stuff out. La maceta, flower pot, la maceta. And these are these are the double words for mulch. I've got those separated. I think I'm going to keep this in with this. pajote or mantillo, kind of depending on what regional preference people have. Pajote comes from paja, which is like straw, and straw was used as mulch, I believe. It's maybe still is in some places. So those are two terms that people would all understand for mulch. Fertilizante, fertilizar. There you go. You got your noun and your verb. El surco or la hilera would be a row. So if you have a row of flowers or a row, like a furrow, yeah, where something is planted. El tallo, your stem of your plant. See, las hojas, your leaves of your plant. You've probably heard hojas before. La raíz, the root. So if there's a problem with your root, these are all, you know, plant parts. El tronco, trunk of, I should put in here tree. That's not the trunk of your car. I should be more specific. El tronco is the trunk of a tree. Car trunk will have a totally different word. So don't use el tronco to talk about a trunk of a car. La espina. And that looks a little bit like spine, doesn't it? And that's what a thorn is. It's a spiny thing. Yeah. La espina. El pétalo. Wow, there's a nice cognate. So you also hear both of these terms used. I've heard it called el cacto or el cactus. I've heard it called both by people. So I'm not sure if one is more preferred than the other, but cactus, sí. Las pesticidas, muy obvio, ¿no? La insecticida, insecticide. La palma or la palmera, you often have that. La cosecha would be a crop or your harvest. Okay, so, and cochezar would be to harvest. Bien, sí, y los vegetales o las verduras, both of those terms mean veggies. So I want you to pick anything off the new part of the list, or, you know, if you want to go back and kind of regurgitate over that first part of the list, I'll send you the whole thing. Build some things that you would use to talk about what you typically do in your garden or what you want somebody to work on in your garden. And when you have a landscaper in working your garden, it is okay to use commands with them because they're working for you and taking pay. And they don't perceive that as, well, that's bossy of her or him to give me an order. Well, no, they're kind of expecting that because you're saying, hey, do this, but it'll always be polite with the por favor, right? So if you make it a command. Sí, Juanita.
So there is no word for yard per se. I mean, it seems like you either have a patio or you have a garden. But in
Es buena pregunta. That is a very good question. Yard, as we know it in the United States, is not a thing in many other countries. Many, not just Spanish speaking. Yard is that concept of a yard with like a lot of grass is a thing in England, maybe Ireland, I don't know, but not such a worldwide thing like we have here in the States. So really that idea is always conveyed with el jardín or el patio. And patio is really more specific. You know, in Spain, it was kind of really your central courtyard. It was more of a specific thing. El patio was kind of in the center of a building and everybody would share that common, you know, and be not roofed usually. But el patio or el jardín, they're both fine. El patio is usually more like behind your house as a general rule, in the back of your house.
'Cause
Um,
I think of a patio as being a covered thing
we do.
from Southern California. If somebody had a patio.
Or something that's
slab
Right.
paved,
Covered.
paved or surfaced
Um,
with something.
Mhm.
I believe we in English are the ones who borrowed that word of patio from their culture. But really, patio is like an area where you sit out in back of your house.
Mm.
Not necessarily roofed. I know for us, patio conjures a really specific
Mhm.
picture, right?
Mhm.
But patio jardín are yard, but you know, that concept of having like lots of grass is not so common in other countries like it is here. If you have access to, I think it is New York Times, I'll see if I can find the link for you. There's something on, we in the United States have to get off this thing of yards. I think the title for the article was Kill Your Yard. You will thank yourself for it. And it talks about it. There's a little video connected with the article. It talks about the evolution of the yard. And that this is a thing that came from England. Nobody else does this but us.
Yeah, big grassy lawns is English.
Big grassy lawn, like connected to an individual residence, is very unique to English, to American culture, and that this is the way we are draining our aquifers in a,
Mhm.
yeah. And, you know, for us, it is kind of common to think of putting in desert landscaping. For the rest of the country, oh my God. Did any of you have a father who pampered that lawn? Now, this article talks about how many days of your life you spend taking care of that lawn. How much time? You know, I'm afraid to say, what was it, months? How many months of our lives? They said, do you really want to spend months of your lives watering that lawn and cutting that lawn? Well, okay. So they're doing kind of a push away from that. But patio and, you know, or jardín, always.
Okay.
It's just what they do. Eso es. Okay, bien.
See?
I'm also going to send you a very beautiful video that talks about a specific gardening type competition that is done in Córdoba, one of the southern cities in Spain. And you will see their patios, and they look more like what you envision patio to be, because yeah, they're the traditional patio. But it will, it's about a 7-minute video. And it'll be a very fun thing. You'll hear them using some of these gardening type words, but they actually have competitions for gardens in that part of the world. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So we'll give you some words to build on, some videos to watch, and there'll be a listening comprehension video that will not be connected with vocabulary, just for listening. And the listening comprehension video will just be for, can you follow the story? And it will use the past. Yeah, can you again plug in those past ideas of imperfecto and pretérito just to know what's going on in the story? Okay, bien?
Sí,
¿Todo bien?
sí, gracias.
Todo bien. Fantástico. Okay, so we have some vocab work, some video related to vocab, some video that's for fun. Non-vocab related. Yes, es todo. That's it for this week, I think.
Hey.
Bien?
Yeah.